The Whiteout podcast, episode 2. We're back. We had a bit of a hiatus. We tried to record, actually, like an episode in between this one and the first one we did, but first one we didn't love. Second one we recorded it, didn't get Noah's audio, of course. That's on me. Third one, the game was out already. It wouldn't have made sense. We just scrapped it. We figured we're going to come back, episode 2, after the first 2 games, and so we're here. We witnessed the first 2 games. Noah, how are you doing? I got NHL on this screen here, so I was ripping NHL 23. So if you see lights flashing, that's what it is. But how are you doing now?
Pretty good. Getting over a little bit of a cold right now. Not as good as I was after the first game with the Jets, but still feeling pretty good. And I love the honesty from Braden right now, letting you know that we had to scrap a few podcasts, but we're back, better than ever. The Whiteout lives on.
Yeah, if we're gonna put out a podcast, we want to make sure it's up to our own standards, and so that it's good for you guys to listen to as well. So, I mean, I'm not gonna sugarcoat anything. It just is what it is. If we want to go over the first 2 games, because I was over the moon after game 1. I was thinking we're gonna be the best team in this league. Maybe not that far, but I was hyped. I was pumped. The building was insane. Everybody was loving it. I don't know. What did you see out of that first game there, Noah?
Vintage Connor Hellebuck, vintage Mark Scheifele. It seems like bonus, even though he wasn't on the bench, he was getting the most out of the boys. Back checking and forechecking. There was new life in the Jets in that first game. It seemed like everyone knew they had a fresh start, and you never saw that with Lowry last year after Maurice took over. I didn't think, anyways. It seemed refreshing. The Jets played a really good game. Now, I did feel the same way as you that the Jets were going to be the best team in the NHL. I had that thought crossed through my mind, and then I sat back and I thought about it. I'm like, you know what? New York's on the back. They're on a back-to-back right now. They aren't starting Igor. He isn't in net. And this is the Jets' home opener here. There's an electric crowd in attendance. There's a lot of things going against the Rangers. And for parts of the second there, without Connor Hellebuck, I don't know if the Jets would have won that game. And just Sam Gagner scoring the game-winning goal was icing on the cake. That pass from Pierre-Luc Dubois was fantastic. And Blake Wheeler made a great play on the empty nets. Now, everything in between, some sloppy play by the Jets, like I said in the second, but a great opening game. Then there was Dallas, but we'll get to that. What did you think about the first game?
Yeah, the first game was nuts. I'm sitting there watching it, and, before the game, we talked about this in the episode that would have come out, but we were saying how New York is just such a good team. It's going to be a tough game. Odds are of us not beating them. And then Scheifele comes out of the gate, and you can tell he's in the corners. He's fighting for every puck, and it's like, whoa, like I haven't seen this Mark Scheifele in forever, and this is insane. And then he scores the first goal, and the crowd just erupts. It was the whole building atmosphere. It felt like everybody just woke up, came alive, and then it was just from there on out, it was just firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, and you got to give Connor Hellebuck props. I mean, he really won the game for the Jets that night, in my opinion. Especially when they sat back and maybe let the Rangers take it to them. Connor Hellebuck was the first star in my books.
Yeah, you know what? The immediate thought was, this is a Vezina goalie right here. Like, if we get this Connor Hellebuck, or even a bit of this Connor Hellebuck the rest of the season, that's a lot of help on the back end that we desperately need right now, because one of the things we'll go over going into game 2, we didn't really have to worry about the defense too much game 1, but game 2, it really, really, you could tell that the defense was hurting us, right? It wasn't, you could tell that we don't have a number 1 defenseman. We don't have a number 2 defenseman, really. These are second, third line defensemen that we have. Morrissey,
Pionk.
Like, it's not the defensive core that we need for this team, because I think the offense from game 1 to game 2, obviously they weren't firing as much. They weren't, the energy wasn't all there. You could tell. But when Hellebuck's not getting help, it's tough. It's tough. And
yeah. No, yeah. And like you said, like our forwards, our top 6 are elite. I think that top 6 can be put into any lineup pretty much around the league and be just as good, if not better. Like, they're a top 5, top 6 in the NHL, in my opinion. And I know a lot of franchises probably think that. But to have Ehlers, Scheifele, and Kyle Connor on one line, 3 players that drive lines respectively, and then to have Blake Wheeler, Perfetti, and Pierre-Luc Dubois on the second line. It's amazing depth we have on forward, and then the defense is just a little bit of a letdown. Now, Morrissey, I think, can be a second defenseman. He's not a first defenseman in the NHL. Pionk, he's a border second, third kind of guy, but we don't have that number one D, and that's what the Winnipeg Jets lack. And, I don't see any prospects that are going to step into that role anytime in the future. I mean, Villy, I'm a big fan of him, but I don't think he'll ever be a number one defenseman. He could be a top four NHL defenseman that plays a lot on the power play. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if the Jets can fill that void, and if they can get a number one defenseman, they're hard to come by. If they could, just somehow, if they get them on the Christmas list, uh, they could become contenders. They have almost everything else.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. Where we just talked about this. We were talking fantasy. This whole week's been fantasy talk, fantasy talk, fantasy talk, because leagues are starting up, everything like that. And we were saying how you got your couple elite defensemen in the league, but then it drops off. There's not that that really good but not elite defenseman anymore. Now it's like you have your elites and you have your average defenseman, and I feel like that's a problem all around the league right now, where there isn't that. Sort of the same thing with goalies. Like there's a couple elites, but there's not that whole lot in that middle tier. So that's partially where you look ahead for the Jets and you think, okay, can we go out and get a number one defenseman? Probably not. And is that going to hurt us long term? Probably.
I mean, unless they're looking at, I don't even necessarily know if this guy is a number one defenseman, but I know Jacob Chikrin has been on the block from the Coyotes for a while. And I think maybe his potential, if he plays the best he ever can, would be a number one defenseman. But the price from the Coyotes right now is a high asking price, and I don't see the Jets wanting him right now, in my opinion. I don't know what the rumors are, but I don't see it happening. But potential number one defenseman on the market, that's a real hot take, because I don't think many people look at Chikrin that way. I think he's a great skater. He's had some injuries, and if everything goes right for him the rest of his NHL career, he could develop into that number one defenseman.
Yeah, I mean it's a tough thing to look at as well, because it's like, do we really have the cap space to get anybody unreal right now, or that we can afford to in the next couple of years? Probably not, unless we make some moves. Which there was rumors going into the season that there'd be moves made, but by the way that sort of the season's starting and looking, I don't know. Do you move one of those forwards, top six forwards, for a D man that you may or may not get? I don't know. I don't think that's. I think we have to, as a team, learn to play more defensively, because even in these first two games, you see there wasn't a ton of back check. There wasn't a ton of structure to the defense, and your forwards getting back and stuff like that. Like the power play looked unreal. I think it looks like we could have one of the best power plays in this league, but defensively, the PK, the just this whole structure as we run it isn't. It's looking tough, and I don't know if there is a way that we can get over that right now without just sort of taking our lumps in the first couple of games and learning. That's about all we can do right now.
Yeah, I think we're being a little tough on the Jets D here too. Like they're not the worst in the league, but
No.
they're just not exceptional. They're not phenomenal in any regard of the game. I mean, Pionk has had his moments. Morrissey, he's a pretty good passer. No one's gonna muck it up physically like Logan Stanley's supposed to, but he never really shows that side of his game. That's why I would almost be willing to put Villy in over Stanley. I know the waiver eligibility thing really is hard for the Jets, because you don't want to lose Stanley, a former first round pick, on waivers. But eventually, Stanley's got to show us something. He's not a point getter. If he's not, and since he's not a point getter, he's got to start playing better physically, or playing more against elites and being a shutdown guy. I haven't seen his niche yet and what he's going to bring to this team. I don't think he's a bad defenseman necessarily, but to have him developing on this big stage, hoping he becomes something, is a risk that I don't know. I guess the Jets have to take. They don't have a better option. In my opinion, Villy would be, but they're just not. They're not there yet, because he's younger and he can go to the minors without clearing waivers.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. I think I really like Billy, but we're playing the sort of the cards we're dealt right now. So in that regard, are we going to? Is there going to be a change made, and how far into the season before we start before we start thinking, okay, maybe we do need to start moving some people, making some changes. And I don't know. I'm hoping, by the look of that first game, if we can play like that, won't be a bad season. But then we went from wow, this team might be fantastic to oh, that's a tough game to just come after a win against the Rangers.
Well, we discussed on one of the podcasts that didn't make it to air here that we thought the Jets were going to go 1-1. We did not think they were going to win the Ranger game. We thought they were going to beat Dallas. So we were still right in our predictions of where they would be after 2 games, but we didn't know which game they would win, which game they would lose. So it's a little bit of a mind f, for lack of better words.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, looking at the next, I'm even looking at the next like 3 games, and none of those games are going to be easy. Like we got Colorado, which is going to be insanely tough. Vegas, which we should be able to beat Vegas, I think. But then we got Toronto right after them, and I think with the goaltending situation in Toronto right now, I think it's a blessing in disguise. Sorry, but that Murray's out. I think Samsonov is a much better goaltender.
I agree.
I don't even know what the thought process on the Murray thing was, but hey, you know what? This isn't a Maple Leafs podcast. I don't need Toronto fans screaming at me. So it's going to be tough.
I think they thought he was a back-to-back Stanley Cup champion at one point, and they could maybe rebuild that.
Yeah.
Just to give my 2 cents on the Leafs.
Yeah, I understand, but I think, I don't know, like even going into this season, I was talking about how if Toronto, if they end up not liking Murray, I can pick up Samsonov right off the waivers, and that's the first thing I did. So
I've seen it. You do it in all your leagues or what?
I did it in both. Yeah, I had some poor goaltending in my other league, so I got him going pretty early because I had Campbell and Fleury, and Fleury was horrendous.
And Campbell hasn't been great.
No, but
I mean, it's more of a team issue there. So
yeah, no bounce back. If you look at that Edmonton team, they'll have their rough start and then they'll get into a groove and start winning games or whatever.
It's all about the power play.
Yeah. So yeah, so far, I mean, looking ahead at those games, it's going to be a very, very tough next couple. But I think if we can get through going even 1-2, 1-2 against those 3 teams, I think we're laughing, and then we sort of start to get into a little bit an easier schedule in compared to those. Like we got the Blues, the Kings, the Coyotes, and then Vegas again to end October. So I don't think it's an insanely hard back half of this month. But I mean, if we can play like we did against the Rangers, or even a bit more like that compared to that or the Dallas game, I think we'll be fine this year. I said they were a fringe playoff team, and that's what's looking. It's looking like it might be a very hot and cold season, which is pretty much what we expected from last year, right? They went on their streaks, they went on their duds, and it looks like that's what we're getting again.
We'll see where they are by American Thanksgiving. That's usually how you determine how great teams are. First road game of the year is always kind of iffy for every NHL team, so we can give the Jets a little bit of a break. But you mentioned that you're not really giving the Jets much of a chance to beat Colorado here, but the Coyotes, they beat the Leafs last night. So, I mean, anyone can beat anyone in the National Hockey League.
This is a big league. Anyone can beat anybody. But you know what? I think that my roommate actually brought up a stat that was the Coyotes haven't lost to the Maple Leafs. I was wherever it was, road or home, since like 2005, I think, or 2011 or 2005, something like that. Anyways, it was some crazy stat that the Yotes haven't lost to them in forever, either at home or away, wherever that game was played. And it's like, yeah, so that tells you that, like we said, we didn't think they were beating the Rangers. They go and beat the Rangers. We thought they were going to beat Dallas. They lose to Dallas. So as much as we can tell you our predictions and we can be out here guessing like you, it's just going to come down to who comes out with, the fire lit up under their ass in that game. That's pretty much what it comes down to. And we have lots of skill on this team. We've talked about that plenty, is that there's lots and lots of skill on this team. It's just who comes out to play.
Yeah, I think it's 22 games in a row for the Coyotes.
Yeah.
That they picked up a point. At least a point against Toronto.
Yeah, it's an insane stat, but I mean, you know what? I think the Coyotes are a very underrated team. I really enjoyed watching them last year. I love Vemelka. Clayton Keller is fun to watch. They got a lot of on paper not a great team, but a fun team to watch. I really enjoy watching the Yotes. So I don't count any team out in this league. Like if you can get out and go to a Jets game, doesn't matter what game you go to, it's gonna be fun. Pick a couple players that you can, from each team, go watch them. It's tons of fun. That's what got me sort of interested in the Oats last year. I loved watching them because I went to a game and we saw Keller. We saw, I think that was the game that Vemelka got the 1-0 shutout against the Jets with like 50 shots or something. So yeah, it was, go out. I heard that some games aren't selling for very high prices, so there's a lot of cheaper tickets now. Go out, and if you got a night to just say screw it, go to a game. It's plenty of fun. That's my plan this year. I'm going to go sit in the 300s and pay $15 for a ticket and watch some good hockey. And you get to, if you can go to a Edmonton game. I think the Toronto games are very expensive, I've heard, but Edmonton, Colorado, pick up some, Stanley Cup potential teams. It's lots of fun.
And I would like to throw out there that the Moose need support this season too. And there's a lot of great prospects with the Moose. You got Lucius, you got Lambert, you got Villy, you got Reichel. I mean, there's a lot of good hockey going on in Winnipeg. You don't necessarily have to pay the NHL prices to go see future NHL stars.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, we got lots of hockey here. Like I've went out and watched some Junior B. I've watched some MM. I've watched, I haven't been out to, some of the other leagues yet, but there's lots of high school going on. I've been out to see some of those. So it's, you know what, if you just want to get out and go enjoy some hockey, there's lots and lots of options. And this is a great, great city to go out and be able to enjoy hockey. And I guess going into enjoying hockey, the players' goal songs came out the other day. I think it was end of last week, beginning of last week,
Yeah.
when they were released. And so you know what? Is there any ones that like stand out to you that are like, you know what, that is sick? That's my possible favorite of the ones that were chosen.
Whew. Well, there's three that stood out on paper. I'm gonna go number one, Adam Lowry, Sandstorm.
I like it.
Electric choice by Adam Lowry. I was already a fan, but man, that being your goal song in the NHL, I'm gonna get a jersey now. I'm gonna have to get him to sign it, and then also get the people that make the song Sandstorm to sign it. That's how epic I think that is. Blake Wheeler has a Biggie song as his, which I think's kind of a great dad move. I mean, I like Biggie. He's one of the greatest rappers of all time, but I don't know if anyone else on the team would have chose Biggie just because I think that's Blake Wheeler's era more than anyone else. And then Sam Gagner, we got to hear it in game one of the regular season at home. Mr. Brightside, that's a classic. So there's a lot of good goal songs, but those are three that I thought stood out for me.
Yeah, I really like this pick. You know what? Mr. Brightside might be one of my all-time favorites. It's just an amazing song, great pick. I don't know. There's a lot on here. Like I love. Actually, this is bad, but I love Logan Stanley's "Still Dre." Great pick. I don't know how many times we'll hear it this season, but
It's two career NHL goals, so
yeah,
we might not hear it, but that is a great choice.
Yeah,
that is a great choice.
Adam Lowry's is fantastic. I love Sandberg's "Back in Black." It's always hard to beat AC/DC when that comes on, gets the boys fired up. You know what? There's not much for us to go over today, but we thought, hey, we throw in a couple, cool little pieces. And I guess do you want to hit the BE question of the week? It's sort of goes along this topic.
Yeah, always ready for the BE question of the week.
All right, so the question is what would or a couple of songs that you would choose to be your goal song coming into the NHL?
Oh my goodness. I'll let you go first on that one and let me look through my music library.
Okay. So I got a couple here. The Mr. Brightside pick I love. I love going off that. I think my first one, though, is a shout out to, I want to say it's NHL 15. It's I'm Shipping Up to Boston. I just think it fires me up. It's a great song. Another good one, like I'm a big Billy Joel fan, so you got like Uptown Girl. You got maybe some old AC/DC, maybe some Guns N' Roses. We could go like I love Sweet Child of Mine, but Welcome to the Jungle, obviously an easy choice. I think Angus brought this up on Jets Nation. He said White Hot. It's a really good one. I even commented on that, and I was like, hey, that's a great pick. Any of yours?
If my name was Ben, I think the easy choice would be Benny and the Jets by Elton John. I like We Be Burnin' by Sean Paul. Just a great hype up song. It's maybe a little underrated. And for a third one, that's tough. Uh, You'd have to go with some old rock and roll or something. Maybe to get to the Winnipeg roots, I go with Neil Young, Keep on Rocking in the Free World.
Love it. Yeah. That's a great choice. I was gonna say I forget whose song "Hey Baby" is. That's another one. I don't know. It just
Ooh.
gets me. It's good.
If you're winning at like a Bombers or a Jets game and they're playing that and the crowd starts singing it, it's a vibe. It's a great time.
Yeah. You know what? There were some great choices. I would love to see other teams sort of take this and do something themselves. Because I think, are we the only team in the league that does?
The first one I'm aware of, I don't keep up with all 32 NHL teams. I've been wondering why this hasn't been a thing for quite some time. I don't know of any other team that does it. Maybe one of our listeners can inform us if we're wrong there. But it's a great way for the players to show more personality, I think. I mean, they do it in baseball with the walk-up song, and I think it's just baller. So I'm glad it's made its way to the NHL now. Also, special shout out to Billy Talent. He's got some great NHL tunes that I think would be stellar after a goal.
There you go. I know. You know, I've always said that I love the baseball atmosphere. Like Edwin Diaz coming to the bullpen this year. Oh God, it just hits you. Like you just the trumpet going, or for any that
He's
used
got
to watch.
Narcos.
Yes, yeah, or Mariano Rivera coming out of the pen back in the day. Like just electric.
Enter
Like
Sandman.
yeah,
Enter Sandman.
if you hear that and you see Mariano Rivera coming out of the bullpen, like you just pack up and go home. Like you know it's done. Or Vladdy walking the play with Placata going, like just God. Yeah.
The thing, I think someone did have Sandstorm as a reliever. They were a Boston pitcher back in the day. They weren't quite as good as Mariano Rivera, but if you look up top five closer entrances in MLB history, you'll find it, and you'll be ready to run a marathon after watching that. Like it's very motivational.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I love that part of the game. I think this is a fantastic addition, and if other teams don't do it, like I think that's something like going forward in the next couple of years that we'll definitely see happen more and more. Maybe not in like Arizona where they're in like a maybe, I don't know if they have the money for that right now, but in some bigger markets, I think I could see it definitely going to Toronto and Edmonton, teams around here. That'll probably be where it starts to pop up a little bit more, and then everything good. Fire alarm going
Yeah,
off, or
no, we got the Budweiser goal light. We got
oh,
them set for in my house here, the family house. We got two NHL teams it's set for, and the Jets aren't playing tonight. It's another Canadian team we won't mention.
there you go. Yeah. So you know what? It's always fun. I did make a post on our TikTok. I think it was like maybe half an hour ago. The Canucks are up 2-1 or 2-0. Go look at that post on our TikTok at the Whiteout _ pod. I think it was hilarious. I don't know why. It just like popped in my head. So go check that out. You can also check out our Twitter. We're pretty active on our Twitter actually. So, and I think we're gaining followers. We're almost up to 40 on our Twitter. So it's at the Whiteout _ pod as well. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can find us right here on YouTube if you want to see the video version. We might start, I think we're going to start doing some guests coming up. Probably, I'm going to say around episode 4 or 5. We just, when I start to actually decide to reach out to some people. So we'll get that done. We'll have a bunch of stuff coming up. I do have a list of probably close to when you can expect episodes. So maybe we'll release something of a tentative schedule on our Twitter so that you guys know, okay, today's the day that I can listen to the podcast and whatever. So there is the game tonight, or I guess it would be when you're listening to this, it'll be tonight. So yeah, enjoy the game. Tweet at us if you see something that you think we'll find interesting or whatnot. And Noah, you want to wrap it up for us?
Yeah, go Jets, go! Stay classy, Winnipeg.